Hi everyone. So for today's card I've kind of got an idea of what I wanted to do, so these are all the bits that we're going to use, and I'll explain the background and the products used, and then we'll speed through the putting together of the card. This was kind of a thought process, and then it sort of worked, and I'm hoping it still comes together, so we'll see what happens. So for today's card I used the main focus is the Lawn Fawn Love You Small. Thought that was really cute. It's an older stamp set, but I thought it was so cute for outdoorsy kinds of cards. If you know people who do a lot of that outdoorsy kind of stuff, if they go camping a lot, if they go you know, whether it's, you know, camping, well, any kind of camping, and then, you know, anybody who likes hiking or, you know, that kind of stuff. I think this is a great stamp set for that. So yes, so that's one of them. I then also used some images from the Lawn Fawn Dad Plus Me stamp set. I actually used some of these images down here to create the background. I then, and just while we're on that, these images would work too for the camping type things. This is a great set for that sort of outdoorsy kind of, maybe a more masculine card as well. I think that's a great idea. And then this one, this is the Lawn Fawn Mom Plus Me, and I used the tree trunk here. It just added, what you'll see in a bit, is the, like a stool. You could use it as a, if you've got little images, you could use it as a table and they could have food on it or something like that, you know. So again, great outdoorsy kind of stamp set. And then I used these Lawn Fawn again. This is a Lawn Fawn heavy kind of card, like I do. I used the stitched hillside backdrop in landscape. So I haven't used the images that come with it. I've just used the actual backdrop, and I'll show you that in a second. Just realised I will need this when we go to put this together. So oh, ink, hello. So I've used, for the backgrounds, actually I'll walk you through that as I do this. So all the images, I'll just pop them off here to one side. All the images I stamped and then cut out with my, and coloured and cut out with my Scan and Cut. This one, this was an afterthought, so this one I actually hand cut, and I know why I use my Scan and Cut or my dies. I'm not very good with cutting things out by hand, but because of the ink I'd used to stamp with it, and I'd actually stamped on some watercolour cardstock for this particular one, I managed to use a water brush. You can use water and a paintbrush, and I just dragged the colour out onto the rest of it so that it looks more like the image is coloured in completely, if that makes sense. And that was just a Stampin' Up ink, so that wasn't even an ink like a distress ink where it's made to react with water. Most dye inks will, but some dye inks dry really quickly, so that's why they don't necessarily react. But this one did. So other than that, the rest of them I used to die cut on my Scan and Cut. And I used my Copics, which I'll insert the colouring part of this, and I'll also insert the colour, the codes or the names of the colours on that section. But I yeah, used some Copics for that. Then for my background, this outside edge and this green bit where the stitching is, this is what cuts out of the hillside backdrop die. This section also cuts out, but my Gemini has so much pressure that it somehow, the piece that cut out of there didn't quite fit. It was weird. It had like this tiny little gap on either side, so I made a new plan and just have a plain piece at the back. So that's a way around it. Obviously this is slightly, there's a slight step or lip here, which you wouldn't get if you had the piece that fitted straight in there. You could use that as well. So I initially started out with white cardstock, and I was going to do a lot of inking, and I was going to do a lot of, you know, like distressing, that kind of thing, but it didn't quite go to plan. So like I say, I had to make a new plan. So for the outside edge here, so the main frame if you like, I actually used, and you can just see it here, I used Pear Pizzazz cardstock by Stampin' Up. So this ink, this colour is actually Pear Pizzazz all the way around here. And what I did was for the bottom section I used Pear Pizzazz on Pear Pizzazz and I got with an inking tool, and I just got this soft gradient look around the edge here, and it just darkened the cardstock as well, which I wanted because this is a nighttime scene. So that's, you know, if it was a daytime scene that's fine too, but it's specifically a nighttime scene, so I needed to darken the cardstock, so I used Pear Pizzazz on Pear Pizzazz. So that was that bit. Then to get my sky, to get the sky bit, I did two things. One is on this frame, before I stuck this on, I put a piece of masking tape just on the edges here. I don't know if you can see that bit there, so there's an actual line, so it's almost like the hill carries on down there. And then I used Night of Navy and just inked along the edge here. So bear in mind this was Pear Pizzazz. I've now gone over it with Night of Navy, and I actually think the look is kind of cool. It's not completely Night of Navy, but it is a much darker colour, which is what you want for a nighttime scene. And then what I did was I also inked the panel at the back, which I'll explain in a minute, with Night of Navy just round the edges again to create this sort of darkness, or what would be night sky. And even down here and even across some of this part I did add some extra Night of Navy in there, because the whole area, if you think of nighttime, all of it's nighttime. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to have just the sky being nighttime and then the middle bit look like daytime. Like, that's not real. So it's kind of fun to think about, but it's not real. So to make it as realistic as possible, that's why I added extra darkness down here as well. So that's where my Night of Navy comes in. Just get that out of the way. Then the pieces that I used to create my lake and the water coming down from the mountains actually comes from, this is where I used the Dad Plus Me stamp set, and this is the lake. So there's a whole piece here, but I made it so that it hid behind this grassy bit, so it looked like the lake was just, you know, like sometimes you have mountains and valleys and all that, and then you can look through and you can see water. That's the idea. And then this is the piece that I used for the water trailing down from the mountains. The mountains are also on this stamp set here. So the colour for those, I used Balmy Blue, Stampin' Up, and I used Soft Suede for my mountains, and I stamped them, I think it was maybe 2-3 times maybe, for each of these. I think the mountains were twice, and then these were 3 times for each of them, just so I had a really good solid image. And I used my Misty, I don't have a Misty, I used my Tim Holtz stamping platform for that. I think it's a key thing if you need to go over something over and over. I think that's a really good thing, you know, good product to have. So that's what those two colours were used for. Then, just while we're here, the panel that this is sitting on is actually Mint Macaron Stampin' Up cardstock. So I picked a colour that I thought would be, I didn't have like a pale blue, but then I thought, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm making a nighttime scene. So I went with this sort of colour, and it's like more of a minty green than a blue. So, but it worked. I think it worked. It turned out really quite cool, and it almost gives like a halo effect here with when the Night of Navy's been put on. And then what I did was I just very carefully put some very skinny, super strong tape. I couldn't even tell you the name of this. I think it's just one of the craft sites had it. I bought it quite a while ago, still using it. And it's super sticky tape. You just want something that's going to really hold on to it. And then I, you know, got that in place and stuck it down. So that's where I'm at the moment. So I haven't even got my card base yet, so it's like I'm kind of winging this card. And then, like I say, I used soft suede to stamp this, which came from, oops, this is from the Mum Plus Me stamp set. And when you stamp it, obviously the areas that look like they're pale brown here are actually the colour of your cardstock. So I dragged in using a water brush, like I said, to just make it look like a chunk of wood. So that's going to be, I'm going to use it as almost like a little stool for one of the creatures. You could use it as a table and have, you know, I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but there's a small, you could have the small on the table, yeah. So think about that, like look at all your stamp sets, all your die sets, and see what, depending on the theme that you're going for that particular project, look at how many other ways you can use those, or how you can mix those together. And that's what also one of the many things I love about Lawnfawn, is that all their images are like interactive with each other. So because they're all similar size and they've got that sort of similarity as far as the artwork goes, you can use them with so many different things, you know, use them together with so many different projects. So but look at all your supplies. You'll be surprised how much stuff you can find that you'll be able to use, that, you know, have the same sort of you know, get more ideas from that. And then once you get going, then sometimes it's just a case of the ball just goes, and then you just got to go with it sometimes. Anyway, I'm waffling now. So I will insert the colouring portion of all these images, and I will also link all these are all the names of the colours that I used of alcohol. I used my Copics. I will put the names of them there for you if you want, in case you need, you know, want to reference them. And then I will speed through the bit after this, which will show you us putting this together. Just one other thing that I thought I'd bring in that, you know, you'll see in the video. This is a Sakura Jelly Roll sparkle pen, and this is I think this is the clear sparkle, I think that's what it's called, and it is just a clear ink, but it's got like a goldy tint to it. So I'm going to use this kind of like stars in the background. I'm just going to literally dot what I think would be stars. So yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, I normally use Nouveau Crystal Glaze, and if I've got this pen I probably won't use my Nouveau. I'm a bit obsessed with Nouveau as well. There's an aqua shimmer, you could use that as well. I just think this will give a more precise dot. So that's what I'm going to do with that. So other than that, I think that's probably all the other product I'm going to use in this card. So I'm going to speed through the next bit after you've seen the colouring, speed through it, and then let you enjoy me putting this together, and hopefully it'll turn out to be kind of cute. So that's what we're aiming for. So I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more crafty stuff from me. Thanks. See you soon.